Look at the next image. At first, it looks like the red circle from the left is bigger than the red circle on the right. But once the optical illusion of the surrounding black circles disappears, we can see that the circles are the same size. In this example, the black circles create an optical illusion. The black circles affect how we see the red circles. Relativity plays a huge role. According to our mind, both red circles' size is relative to the black circle's size. But what if our senses are not the only thing affected by relativity, but also our behavior? Let's find out. The truth about relativity. Why everything is relative, even when it shouldn't be. To start analyzing how relativity affects our decisions, let's look at an example explained in the book. The author says that once he was on the internet and saw an ad. The ad described a subscription to a magazine. The offer was like this: $59 for a yearly, online subscription that included access to every online article. Or $125 for a yearly subscription to the printed version of the magazine. But there was a third option. $125 for both the online and the printed subscription. It looked like a mistake at first, but this was a real offer. How could they offer this option? Let's look at how relativity takes part in this. People are unable to make decisions based on absolute values, because we can't figure out the price or value of things on their own. We need some sort of relative comparison between the options. For example, we might not know the price of a 6-cylinder car, but we assume it's more expensive than a 4-cylinder one. That's the same situation previously mentioned in the magazine example. Let's consider that situation again. We normally don't know how much a subscription might cost, but when the options of $59 and $125 appear, we have a better idea. However, once the option at $125 for the online and printed version is available, we say bingo. It's a great deal. Do we really need both subscriptions? Probably not, but this combined offer seems like a bargain, once our brain knows how much the other two options were in the first place. What's going on? Relativity. External objects or ideas affect how we perceive the thing we are interested in. This is a very important idea, because it explains why we are always comparing articles, experiences, and people. By making these type of comparisons, our brain finds it easier to determine which things are the best or the worst. But let's take a step further. We compare things that are easy to compare. Suppose that you will buy a house because you are moving to another city. Your realtor shows you 3 houses. One of them is a contemporary style and the other one is a traditional style. The third one is also a traditional style, but it needs a new roof. Consider that every house costs the same, and all of them seem like a good option. Which one would you choose? Most people would think like this.
I don't know a lot about housing styles, but I know that there are 2 similar options. Both traditional houses are easy to compare, so I can basically leave out the contemporary option simply because there is no reference for it. It's difficult to see if it's a good or a bad option.
To explain relativity a bit better, let's look at the next image. Both options, A and B, in this example seem to have advantages. But it is not clear which of the two is the best one for us. And then, there's a third option. And it looks similar to one of the previous 2 possibilities, but with some disadvantages. By having A negative, the decoy, our mind finds it easier to choose between the 3 options. In the house's example, B would be the contemporary style. A negative would be the traditional house that needs another roof. A is the traditional house with no need for another roof. That's how we finally make up our mind, and we pick the A option. What can we learn from this? People might want to use this information against us, but now that we learned how relativity works, we can use this to improve our lives by looking at the big picture of things. Have you ever heard the expression, the grass on the other side is always greener? This means that we think that other people are better than us. But if we think carefully, relativity is taking part in this. Other people influence how we perceive ourselves. So, we should eliminate the optical illusion that they create and only judge ourselves by our accomplishments and behavior. Of course, this is easier said than done, but now we understand how our perception of reality works, and what we can do about it. Let's have a look at our financial decisions. Imagine you are on vacation. You decide to go to a restaurant. Once you are there, you pay $200 to include soup on your $5,000 bill. Are the $200 a lot? Well, you just spent more than that, so you might think it's not a big deal. Would you pay that much for soup on a regular day? Probably not, since we are always trying to save money. What's the lesson here? $200 are always $200. Unfortunately, our brain doesn't think that way. What we can do is to look at the big picture and see if we are willing to pay for something, regardless of the situation. Now let's have a look at how we manage time. You are in a store to buy a nice pen. When you see it, you notice that it's $30. You realize that you just saw the same pen for $23 in another store. You have to walk for 15 minutes to save $7. Would you go to the other store? Probably. Similar situation. You want to buy a new suit. You see it's $535. You again realize that the same suit is 15 minutes away from that store, $7 cheaper. Would you buy the other suit that is $528? Now, it doesn't make sense. So, are $7 worth 15 minutes of our time or not? 15 minutes and $7 are always absolute values, so how can we behave completely different? What we can learn from all of these is to stay away from relativity, regardless of its challenge, and look at the big picture. And you? How can you apply this idea to improve your life? In which area can you avoid relativity to make better decisions? Money? Relationships? Career? Tell me in the comments, and thank you so much for watching this video.